Bună dimineața! Sunt Sorin Ducaru, președinte de onoare al Consiliului Științific al New Strategy Center și director al Centrului Strategic al Uniunii Europene și îmi revine onoarea deosebită de a spune bun venit domnului ministru Bogdan Aurescu și online ministrului Afacerilor Externe al Croației, Gordan, Grlić, Radman, pentru un panel deosebit, însă înainte de a intra în tematica panelului, aș dori să-i dau cuvântul domnului ministru Aurescu pentru un anunț de mare actualitate. Așa că, cu acest prilej, domnul ministru, vă rog.
Mulțumesc mult, Sorin. Și dacă merge, trebuie să-l știți, cred. Mulțumesc mult, Sorin. Este o deosebită plăcere pentru mine să fiu în această dimineață alături de dumneavoastră. I would like also to say good morning and hello to my colleague Gordan. We just have seen each other yesterday during the Gimnich meeting in Slovenia. But before that, let me make a short announcement, which is, I think, very positive. And I will start in Romanian, and then I will do it also in English for my colleague. Este un anunț, cred, foarte bun, foarte pozitiv. După cum cunoașteți, celula de criză interinstituțională pe care am convocat-o pe 13 august pentru evacuarea cetățenilor români care au dorit să plece din Afganistan, respectiv a cetățenilor afgani care fie au lucrat cu trupele române, fie fac parte din categoria studenților cu burse în România, sau e vorba despre alți cetățeni afgani din categorii vulnerabile. După cum știți, celula a continuat să funcționeze și după ce toți cetățenii români, cei 49 care au dorit să părăsească Afganistanul, au făcut-o. Deci după ce am reușit evacuarea tuturor cetățenilor români, am continuat, după cum am menționat, să facem eforturi și pentru evacuarea cetățenilor afgani din aceste categorii pe care tocmai le-am amintit. Am informat acum câteva zile despre faptul că am reușit să evacuăm 5 cetățeni afgani. În această noapte pot să vă informez că am reușit să introducem pe cale terestră în Pakistan un grup format din 45 de cetățeni afgani. Este vorba mai ales despre magistrați de la curțile superioare ale Afganistanului împreună cu familiile lor. Este o reușită foarte importantă a celulei de criză. Colegii mei au stat permanent în contact cu acest grup, care a parcurs un drum dificil.
Traveled a difficult road between Kabul and the border, the road border between Afghanistan and Pakistan. The operation was quite complex, lengthy. We had to guide this group throughout the operation, but everything ended successfully this morning. And I would like to thank especially the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Pakistan, the other authorities in Pakistan, for all their support. Ministry of Foreign Affairs also issued documents to certify that they are under the protection of the Romanian state to enter Pakistan. For those that didn't have passports as well, it was quite complicated paper-wise. Apart from the 45 Afghani citizens that have today reached Pakistan. Some days ago, we've held another 11 Afghani citizens. We didn't have the time to announce this, another achievement of the crisis cell. 5 citizens entering on the yesterday morning in Pakistan, also by road. Other 6 whom we've helped. Their judges and their families, doctors, journalists, and other Afghani citizens from the vulnerable categories that I've just mentioned. Therefore, so far, we've evacuated from Afghanistan 61 citizens, Afghani citizens, added, as I said, to the 49 Romanian citizens, to the 7 citizens from ally states that we've also managed to evacuate. And I would like to thank once again the colleagues in the interinstitutional crisis cell that continue to provide help to safely evacuate other Afghani citizens from this category.
This morning, early in 45 Afghan citizens from Afghanistan through the border, the land border with Pakistan. It's about magistrates from superior courts of Afghanistan and their families. And I would like to extend our gratitude and thanks for the support offered by the authorities of Pakistan, by the Foreign Ministry, the Ministry of Defense, and other authorities of Pakistan for helping the task force, which is led by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and which I have activated on the 13th of August in order to support the evacuation of Romanian citizens, but also of Afghan citizens who collaborated with the Romanian authorities in Afghanistan, who are students or part of some categories of Afghan citizens at risk, magistrates, journalists, and so on. So 45 Afghan citizens evacuated today. Yesterday, we managed to evacuate 11 more Afghan citizens. All in all, by now, Romania has evacuated 61 Afghan citizens from these categories, which adds to the evacuation of the 49 Romanian citizens who expressed their will to be evacuated from Afghanistan, and the 7 citizens of other 3 allied states. So I will end here my brief statement. Thank you once again, Sorin, for your introduction and for well, diverting a little bit the purpose of this panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. And that actually it showed how much concrete crisis management and the value of crisis teams really make a difference in addressing the challenges of our world, which is the subject of this panel. And once again, it's my distinct pleasure and honor to be moderating this panel with Minister Aurescu and Minister Grlić Radman, who are really both of them bringing here the political experience, both the diplomatic, I would say, expertise, because both are career diplomats, and also academic profile. And I will, of course, introduce both of them and give them the floor to make their presentation. But allow me just a minute to introduce the subject, the challenges and opportunity in the post-pandemic world. Yes, because the pandemic has impacted our lives so much, we try to use it as a landmark. We're speaking of post-pandemic world. By the way, we have not yet entered this post-pandemic world because we are still of course, in a different phase of the pandemic as well. And frankly, we should understand that with all its important impacts, the pandemic did not replace the pre-existing regional, international, political and security challenges which have characterized the beginning of this new millennium. Actually, it came on an addition to this with an effect of amplifying the consequences of the pre-existing situation and also generating a couple of new ones. We should really have in mind that this amplification of big power competition, the issue of failing states or erosion of international order, the so-called frozen conflicts, persistent terrorist threats, anti-globalization trends, climate change, proliferation of cyber hybrid attack, as well as the challenges of the new technologies upon security. So I think there are a lot of lessons learned by how the pandemic pushed us all out of the comfort zone. And it's worth to look and analyze the challenges, but also the opportunities that come with them. And with this, I would like to move on and introduce Minister Bogdan Aurescu. He, of course, is absolutely well-known Minister of Foreign Affairs since November 2019, actually the second time Minister of Foreign Affairs. Also, presidential counselor from 2016 until 2019, someone who had a thorough diplomatic career, starting from, attaché from the, normal starting point of a career diplomat, and advancing through ranks of director, counselor to the minister, undersecretary of state, secretary of state, somebody who is also member of the prestigious commission, UN Commission for International Law, with a mandate from 2017 until 2022, also of the Venice Commission, member of the Permanent Court of Arbitrage of The Hague, and also somebody who is able to manage in parallel, which is remarkable, an academic career. He is professor of international law at the University of Bucharest, also a member of numerous international and Romanian academic association with a great number of books and articles published. Someone who has received the Order of the Star of Romania twice with two ranks, other Romanian orders, also Legion d'Honneur, as well as orders from Italy, Poland, other countries. I cannot prolong this too much, but just to make the point that we have here a great combination of experience and I would say good academic and political powerhouse. So with this, I would kindly give you the floor, Minister Aurescu, please. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much, Sorin. I'm grateful for this invitation to the Black Sea and Balkan Security Forum. And I'm very pleased to see that we are teaming up, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, with the New Strategy Center, with the Ministry of Defense, with this university, which is hosting us. In this way, we are able to have such a leading event, a very rich event in both personalities who are participating, but also as far as the substance of the debates. Because this is the 5th anniversary of this forum, I would like to well, wish happy anniversary to this conference, and especially to the effort which is behind this conference. And because yesterday I was taking part not only in the Gimnich informal meeting of the foreign ministers of the European Union in Slovenia, but also taking part at the Bled Security Forum, so from a security forum to another security forum in only 2 days. I would like to well, refer to the challenges that we have in our neighborhoods, because it is very interesting to see how well, how amount of interest there is about the security situation and the other challenges and risks that we have around us. I have stated not only once that for the European Union to become a global player, as it is its stated ambition, it is extremely important for the EU to become more influential in its direct neighborhood. And I think this is very clear for us, especially for Romania, a country which is placed in, well, I would say not a very friendly neighborhood. So first I will focus a little bit on the eastern neighborhood, and then a little bit on the Balkans, of course, leaving to Gordan perhaps more well, space for the second part of our interest. As far as the eastern neighborhood is concerned, yesterday in Bled, we have been discussing about the Eastern Partnership and the challenges faced by the countries in the Eastern Partnership. And one of these important challenges is that related to protracted conflicts. The protracted conflicts which are hampering the development of these countries are sometimes slowing down the reform processes, which in certain countries are a dividing factor within the society, and at the same time, well, a factor of well, influencing in a negative manner the overall security situation of these countries. So because the issue of the protracted conflicts in our neighborhood is so important, together with other 10 colleagues, last year I had taken the initiative of introducing this topic on the agenda of the Foreign Affairs Council of the European Union. And in June, we have, well, as a concrete well, token of the interest of the European Union in this issue, in coordination and with a mandate from the High Representative Josep Borrell, together with the foreign ministers of Austria and Lithuania, we have paid a visit to the South Caucasus region, to all the 3 countries in the region, and I think it was a very fruitful and successful diplomatic tour. Well, we already had a very insightful debate at the previous Gimnich meeting in Lisbon at the end of May. And on that occasion, we have agreed that it is urgent to strengthen the EU political support for our Eastern partners. And in fact, this South Caucasus tour was one of the first concrete follow-ups to the Gimnich discussion in Lisbon. And together with my colleagues from Austria and Lithuania, Mr. Schellenberg and Mr. Landsbergis, we have conveyed during our visit to all the 3 countries in the region a very powerful message of EU solidarity, of EU implication, engagement, the EU commitment to prioritize the security and stability and prosperity of this region on its agenda, and of course a very important message of EU determination to get involved in a more active and substantial manner in the resolution of these conflicts. The protracted conflicts, as I mentioned, well, are a very negative factor affecting the security of the region. But perhaps there are also, as Sorin mentioned, also reasons for hope and for optimism. Over the last couple of decades, in spite of many difficulties, increasingly varied and sophisticated forms of external pressure, the Eastern partners have shown that they are resilient and that they are able to rise up to the challenges they face. Well, and indeed, the fact that EU is willing to get more involved is an extremely positive evolution. And we will continue to have this on our agenda. We will invite the foreign ministers of the countries which are affected by this protracted conflicts to attend a future Foreign Affairs Council meeting in order to establish a mechanism of consultation at this level about what we can do. During our tour, we have also explored the possibility of having new formats of regional cooperation. We have discussed, for instance, about the initiative of Georgia, which is supported by the European Union and I think also by the United States, to have a format including the 3 South Caucasus countries together with EU and possibly United States and other partners to discuss about, not about security necessarily, but about, well, other aspects related to the development of the region, interconnectivity, and other initiatives which may foster contacts, cooperation, and development in this region, including economic development. Romania is of the view that the European Union needs to generate a strategic, integrated approach for addressing these protracted conflicts, and we hope that the security dimension will become one of the dimensions of the Eastern Partnership after the summit of the Eastern Partnership, which is going to take place on the 15th of December this year. There is a number of proposals that we have to include on the agenda of this summit. There is a number of ideas that we have developed after our debate on protracted conflicts within the EU, after the tour that we have organized in the South Caucasus. There is a need for more EU political presence in the Eastern neighborhood. We need to make better use of the association agreements and the DCFTAs, especially if we take into account the well, positive impact which might be created by extending the benefits of DCFTAs over the separatist regions. In the case of Transnistria, this was, for instance, quite effective because between 55 and 65% of the trade of this separatist region of the Republic of Moldova is now directed towards European Union, which is an important factor in favor of reintegration. I think this can be replicated also in the case of, for instance, Abkhazia or even Donbass. Extending the EU support to combat the pandemic and to facilitate the economic recovery of these states, capitalizing opportunities provided by the new European Peace Facility and the new Development, Investment and Cooperation Instrument. And I think many other ideas can be put on the table. We have discussed in detail yesterday in Bled. The Western Balkans. The Western Balkans, well, it's important also because of, again, opportunities and challenges. There are a lot of challenges still there, not only those which are related to the COVID pandemic, but there are still tensions, still inter-ethnic tensions, still reconciliation processes which are unfinished, and socio-economic problems, which are all mixed up in a very complicated way. A lot of external influences from non-EU and non-NATO third parties, and I don't feel the need to say precisely who they are, because everybody knows. They are trying to take advantage on this of this situation, and also of the so-called enlargement fatigue. That's why Romania supports firmly the enlargement of the European Union with the Western Balkans, and we would like to see, as soon as possible, an agreement being reached on opening the negotiations for concrete chapters, the first intergovernmental conferences for accession to North Macedonia and Albania. In conclusion, I would like to stress the fact that it is clear that Europe should play a more forward-looking international role. I think that the COVID-19 pandemic offers us, again, some interesting opportunities, especially because of the fact that the pandemic was a trigger to, for us to understand better why building resilience is so important. And that's why resilience is on the agenda of this conference. That's why resilience is the key theme of the General Assembly, which is going to start quite soon in New York. That's why for the annual reunion of the Romanian diplomacy, which is going to start next week, again, resilience will be the key and center of all debates. So resilience and building resilience in a smarter way, I think not only for the EU institutions, for the EU member states, but also for our partners from the Eastern neighborhood, from the Western Balkans. I think this is extremely relevant and important. We have built, and this is my last word, here in Bucharest, the Euro-Atlantic Center for Resilience. This is an important achievement of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We are very proud of this new institution, which benefits from the support of both EU and NATO. We are working hard to make it operational, fully operational, as soon as possible, and to start the actual work. So I will stop here and thank once again for the kind invitation for me to attend your conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Minister Aurescu, for your overview and the important conclusions. I will now introduce the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Croatia, Mr. Gordan Grlić Radman. Like Minister Aurescu, Minister Radman has combined distinguished political, diplomatic, and academic career. Minister Radman is Minister of Foreign Affairs since July 2019 and reconfirmed after the parliamentary election of July 2020 in this position. He also evolved within the ranks of the Croatian diplomatic service up to the level of the rank of ambassador, very much like Minister Aurescu. He held diplomatic positions in the ministry and also abroad within the embassies in Bulgaria. He has been ambassador of Croatia to Hungary and to Germany, Secretary General, and then president of the Danube Commission with a seat in Budapest. He's also a doctor in political science and professor at the Faculty for Political Science at the University of Zagreb, as well as other Croatian academic institutions. He's also been decorated both at home in Croatia and also in a number of European countries where he has been activating. Again, someone who is able to combine experience and also academic conceptual knowledge to the approach related to the challenges and opportunities of the post-pandemic world, and I believe with a specific focus on the Western Balkans. With this, it is my pleasure and honor to pass the floor online to Minister Radman.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to everyone. So, dear Minister, dear Bogdan and Mr. Ambassador Ducaru, it's my really great pleasure to be with you today, although we are in this virtual. So the pandemic, however, forced us to adapt to the new reality, although it was not a reason just not to come to Bucharest, and I promised to Bogdan to next time to be there, but because we were so swamped with a lot of obligations and the week which is behind us and was really busy one. And as Bogdan said, so firstly we participated at a very well organized Bled Strategic Forum in Slovenia, and later on Gimnich yesterday and day before. And there were really on current affairs, topics which connected us and make of course various. And first of all, we spoke on the situation in Afghanistan, and yesterday we had the lunch in Ljubljana. The Indian minister who just informed us what has been happening right now in the vicinity neighborhood of Afghanistan. So I'm really I'm particularly pleased to speak on a topic high on all of our agendas and for more than a year now. Of course, the post-pandemic geopolitics was also the main topic at Dubrovnik Forum this July. And we will be also following also the next Dubrovnik Forum with some such very interesting and challenging topic. And of course, Bogdan, you are also invited just to Dubrovnik Forum. Just please write down the 8th and 9th of July next year in Dubrovnik. So our Dubrovnik Forum provided us with a fruitful and vision-oriented debate, calling for progress and resilience in a transitioning global order. As Croatia's Prime Minister Andrej Plenković summed it up, we need to translate this crisis to serve our building blocks for a safe and prosperous future, and we need to do it in a common, just in a coordinated approach. I believe that despite a certain geopolitical and geoeconomic distancing brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic, we have learned to stand closer together in trying to overcome the challenges we are all facing. The pandemic hit Europe and the world just as Croatia started presiding over the Council of the European Union in the first half of 2020. And we, of course, understood immediately, so we were actually well prepared and not knowing that it will be really a big challenge for Croatia, that countries that can rely on each other would stand the best chance in getting through this. In this sense, the COVID crisis did not alter the course Europe set in 2019 to be greener, more digital and more resilient. It only accelerated it. Our main goal was to boost the economic recovery and social resilience and help rebuild a post-COVID Europe. Bogdan mentioned the Eastern Partnership. The Eastern Partnership was also one of the top priorities during our presidency, together with the summit organized in Zagreb in the very beginning of May, and later on Eastern Partnership. And we supported and proposed just to also others, and also to Germans and to others following countries, just to continue this very, I think, so important topic, our immediate neighborhood, European neighborhood. It has been well reflected in a forward-looking long-term EU budget, designed also to increase flexibility and introduce mechanism for unforeseen needs and tomorrow's uncertainties. We coupled it with the largest stimulus package ever financed in Europe, namely Next Generation EU. A clear plan we have devised enables us to act wisely and decisively while we steer through the crisis. A crisis that, if properly managed, we also bring the opportunity to reassure, to renew trust and to reinvent. Even prior to the COVID-19 crisis, the rules-based international system has been increasingly under pressure. The system that has served us well for several decades has showed internal weaknesses, primarily the one of integrity, but also of the complacency. The challenges to it came from raising authoritarian powers, the use of might is right policy in global relations, all embracing and prompt technological change, the economic and financial crisis that disrupted the global economic order. The COVID-19 pandemic has only unmasked the existing fractures. So, what scenario should we then expect? The future of the world order could go either way: further disintegration with all the risks, or just increase global insecurity, or, if we play it right, rejuvenation and adjustment of the global order to the 21st century. I firmly believe that only a reinvigorated multilateral rules-based world order can serve as a trusted basis in our ever-expanding relations. Our geopolitics and geoeconomics and need transparency and predictability above all. The transatlantic bond, based on the same unquestioned values of freedom, democracy and the rule of law, remains quintessential for European security. Strong transatlantic relations are both a precondition and priority for stronger NATO. Alliance that has already proven to be capable of adapting and taking up emerging challenges. Lessons learned from Afghanistan should take a prominent place in rethinking of NATO's role, global role, in effect. Transatlantic relations, however, go beyond the security issue. They stand as a proof of the stability provided by a multilateral approach. They reaffirm the appeal of democratically ordered society. They also serve as a basis for mutual economic development, as well as for fast and seamless transfer of innovation and technology. Enhanced transatlantic partnership and European integration together have the transformative power in expanding and safeguarding the zone of peace, stability and development. This has been Croatia's firm conviction and long-term foreign policy orientation. This is actually why Croatia is such a firm supporter of further merit-based EU integration of the Western Balkan Six. Without these countries, the European project will not be complete nor consolidated. Also, the ability of the EU to successfully project stability and security, in particular in its own neighborhood, is directly linked to the EU's long-term prosperity. But of course, it's up to the countries of the Western Balkans just to fulfill all the criteria and benchmarks like Croatia did. And we know how we are on hard work to fulfill it. But Croatia, anyway, we support it. But of course, merit-based EU integration and actually the European values don't have alternative. It's up to countries just to have this European, to follow this European path, and to actually be strongly oriented to the Europe. Because it is in our interest to have our European to have a stable and prosperous, functional neighborhood, namely Western Balkans, Southeast Europe. Further integration, however, requires that the Western Balkans aspirant countries do their share of works as well, as I said it. They need to go beyond the declaratory phrases. They need to demonstrate in practice their commitment and capability to press on hard with the necessary reforms. No country can be an island, no matter its size or relevance, and there is no lasting alternative to trust and accountability in global relations. They should serve as basis to a more decisive cooperation with our southern and eastern neighbors. Such cooperation has mutual benefits in terms of economic prosperity and social political stability. Another fundamental element we should aim for in today's world is a more profound socio-economic connectivity within Europe, but also with its neighborhood as well as the world. This is the reason Croatia, together with Poland, formed the 3 Cs initiative 5 years ago, and also joined the Central and Eastern European countries China initiative. The 2 initiatives might be different in their objectives, but they both lead to the increased infrastructural and market connectivity of Central and Eastern Europe. This infrastructural connectivity built up will hopefully bring about the long-term socio-economic development of Central and Eastern Europe, thus creating a more balanced and sustainable economic layout for the EU as a whole. The economic downturn caused by the COVID-19 pandemic only accentuated the need for this development. Finally, the global trauma caused by the COVID-19 pandemic made us realize that nothing should be taken for granted. Our way of life and our values must constantly be protected and defended. The foundations of our societies must be relentlessly strengthened. It also made us acknowledge that our norms and institutions might need a revival, shot to adjust to the new environment. Who knows, we might even need new structures to build a more resilient and effective global system. Most of all, as a like-minded group, must find the renewed determination to do all those things collectively, in close coordination and with a renewed motivation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Minister, for your presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, the distinguished ministers have agreed to take a number of questions, which I will have the honor to pose. And the first question that I want to address is about resilience, which was very much mentioned by both ministers today. And I will address this question both to Minister Aurescu and to Minister Radman, but with two different nuances. And let me start with Minister Aurescu. You mentioned, Mr. Minister, the opening this year of the Euro-Atlantic Center on Resilience in Romania. And I know this was an initiative that resonated both in NATO and the EU. Can you please highlight the critical role and the objectives of this center, please?
Well, very briefly, I would say that the center is a very useful tool, in fact, in the hands of both EU, NATO, EU and NATO member states, but also for our partners, especially the partners in the neighborhood. The raison d'etre of this center is, on one hand, to collect lessons learned and good practices, and at the same time to spread this lessons learned and good practices to those who are in need for building their resilience, to develop analytical tools and new best practices, and at the same time to try to mitigate risks and anticipate and promote, let's say, solutions for adaptation of institutions and reactions. And it's not just about institutions, it's also about the society, because, for instance, one of the areas of interest is societal resilience, which goes up to the issues related to rule of law, for instance, or upholding democratic values. And this is extremely important when we speak about the resilience of a society and of a state. And also, of course, we are trying through the center to organize training sessions, to organize joint exercises together with EU and NATO institutions, but also with think tanks, with civil society, and with, of course, institutions and civil society from our partners. We are still working on making the center operational. We have identified a number of community of interests, which is in fact a series of working groups or task forces which are focusing on certain areas, and I mentioned some of them, but also I could mention, for instance, critical infrastructure and other such kind of critical areas. We will not be limited to those areas. And what is extremely important, we will not be limited to Romanian experts. We are very much open to receive and embody in our team also experts from EU, NATO member states, but also from our partners.
Thank you very much indeed, and I take it that there is a conceptual drive, operational and practical, and also the cooperative drive that is really aimed with the center. So speaking about the conceptual dimension, I would like to address the following question to Minister Radman, and the question is, how should the concept of resilience be defined or redefined given the very complex landscape of numerous security challenges that actually were analyzed in both ministerial presentations today? Minister Radman, the floor is yours.
And the question is, of course, 21st century is a century of challenges, and of course we never had this situation and circumstances, and actually the world order is endangered actually, and needs to be valuable. we need to scope and to cope and together and to be devoted to the multilateralism. Actually, only together we can just to get answer to their, you know, if you just have a look on the today's strategic environment, it's quite a combination of traditional and non-traditional threats, namely terrorism, disinformation, cyber threats, actually asymmetric threats, stability of energy supplies, climate change, and so on. And actually, concept of resilience increasingly and prominent in security policy discussion, in particular related to disinformation and cyber threats. Defined as capacities for change, adaptation, and recovery. And so this crisis with pandemic COVID-19 also revealed two main problems, such as how to deal with instability caused by slow-moving risks or threats, such as pandemic or climate change, and societies can hardly cope with multiply disruptive events, in particular those of non-traditional actually nature. And resilience, redefined. Of course, resilience remains primarily a responsibility of a state, as we saw it during the COVID-19 pandemic. But it is necessary that the crisis, the catastrophic, doesn't end to the state borders. That means so we have to work together to be more resilient. But the EU and NATO, of course, has each developing capacity to the most important organization in the world to strengthen resilience, to anticipate, prevent, and resolve disruptive threats to their societies. Foundation for resilience lies in the shared commitment to common values when it comes, of course, democracy, freedom, the rule of law, respect of human rights, and resilience of course, of civil structures, infrastructure, resources, and services is actually in the first line of defense. Thus, internal transformation or investments are needed. Resilience goes also beyond recovering from crisis towards learning to adapt and respond to slow-moving risks as threats such as pandemic or climate change, as I made at the outset. And conclusions, so the actually response to threats, holistic, whole of government, whole of society approach is needed. Resilience must be shared. For example, critical infrastructures are not limited to national borders, as I mentioned. Must include national governments, private sector, NATO, and the EU, and there are enhanced cooperation, partner, like-minded countries beyond NATO and EU. Of course, the prevention is a key, and long-term prevention is always a more effective strategy than crisis response. Resilience will remain on an ongoing concern and requiring, of course, constant adaptation as new actually threats emerge. So it is actually something that we have to count with, that it will be stay permanent, steadily our challenge, resilience, and how get answer to this very challenging question.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. I have two follow-on questions, one focused on the Eastern partners, which I will address to Minister Aurescu, and the other on the Western Balkans, which I will address to Minister Radman. Minister Aurescu, you mentioned your visit along with other colleagues with a mandate from High Representative Borrell in some of the Eastern partners countries. So what did you understand are their most important concerns and expectations from the European Union, in particular since you also mentioned the December upcoming Eastern Partnership Summit?
I would say that, first of all, the visit was a success also from the perspective that we were very well welcomed. And I think this renewed involvement of the European Union in this region, and especially in the effort to solve these protracted conflicts, was much awaited. Those countries were, well, asking for or waiting for a sign from the European Union to be again, or to become even more involved and engaged. And each and every leader we met during this tour, President Aliyev, Prime Minister Pashinyan, the Prime Minister of Georgia, all of them welcomed this interest of the European Union. They said, well, there is a very well-deserved place of the EU within, well, this already very complicated context, but the EU was missing. And it is very much, welcome the fact that the EU is now back in business, if I may say so. Of course, the set of problems is very complex there. Take, for instance, the situation after the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, where there are a lot of issues that need to be tackled. At that moment, we paid the visit to both Azerbaijan and Armenia. The hottest issue was the issue of the release of prisoners, of detainees after the conflict, and at the same time, the release of maps showing the location of landmines in certain areas. So this issue regarding the, let's say, exchange between prisoners and maps, well, this was a very hot issue, which was seen from very different angles from both sides, but where, well, a certain mediation effort of the European Union, together with other actors, together with the United States, together with regional actors like Georgia, together with Russia, why not? Well, such an involvement was considered as a positive step. The issue of the demarcation of the border, which is still a pending issue and a very complicated one, taking also into account the let's say warmer moments, including after our visit there. But EU can play a role, for instance, in providing experts with technical expertise in the field of the demarcation of the border, or the EU can provide assistance in terms of monitoring that border. We have already the very good example and expertise of the EU monitoring mission in Georgia, which can be replicated if needed, also as far as the monitoring of the demarcated border between Armenia and Azerbaijan. There are also other areas where we can play a role, for instance, in supporting projects related to cooperation at the local level, trans-border cooperation as far as providing, for instance, water from one side to the other of the border, or small environmental projects that can be financed with EU instruments. So there are a lot of ideas. There are a lot of areas where EU can play a role, especially in confidence building. well, where there is a niche of opportunity for the European Union. But all in all, I would say that our interest and well, renewed commitment to the region, to the stability and security of the region, but also this renewed determination to get involved in the resolution of the conflicts was very much welcomed.
Thank you very much. Actually, as you mentioned, the EU never went out of business. You mentioned OEC monitoring mission, and I should also vouch that the European Union Satellite Center provides geospatial support for this, but I understood that there is a strong desire for being more into the business, and this visit of yours and the upcoming summit will lead things in this direction. Let me ask a question to Minister Radman, and the question is, what are from the Croatian perspective the main challenges and opportunities for the Western Balkan region in the post-pandemic European political, economic and security landscape? So how will this affect? What are the concerns and expectations of the Western Balkan countries? Please, Mr. Minister, the floor is yours.
All the countries in the Southeast Europe, namely Western Balkans, these countries, so we live together more than 70 years. And of course, it is necessary to be objective, but it is not also easy to prevail some subjective, or the emotions are actually still fresh, although it is it happened 30 years ago, because the breakaway of former Yugoslavia happened with a tragedy, and Croatian freedom, sovereignty, independency was forged in the homeland war, and we defended ourselves. But however, we are very proud to be that Croatia fulfilled during this 30 years. It's the most important foreign policy goals, namely, we are member of, we are proudly member of NATO and of EU, and we would like to share this experience with our neighborhood, and who more than Croatia is wishing to share it, and of course. But I see that three issues are important for the security and the stability of the region as a whole, namely natural, and from the geopolitical point of view, all the countries of the Western Balkans belong to Europe, and their European perspective is justified. So the first issue, territorial integrity of all the countries in the region as it is today, must be preserved and protected. Second, constitutional equality of the three constituent peoples in Bosnia and Herzegovina, namely Bosniaks, Croats and Serbs, must be restored. And third, genuine reconciliation, essential for the long-term stability of the region, must be established. And just to mention the first, territorial, to go back to the territorial integrity. The prevailing principle of today's world order separates territoriality from ethnicity. If ethnic principle as a territorial concept is again introduced, it could have several consequences. Of course, normalization of relations between Serbia and Kosovo within their borders would greatly contribute to overall regional stability. And normalization is a comprehensive and complex process and must not become overshadowed to be by the issue of borders and possible exchange of territories. Croatia normally supports the continuation of the EU facilitated dialogue between Belgrade and Pristina. Croatia also was among the first countries to recognize the independence and sovereignty of Kosovo. This is actually reality, and this is critical for the future of Serbia and Kosovo, but also for regional peace and security. And when it comes to the second issue, namely on constitutional equality of the three constituent peoples in Bosnia and Herzegovina, so you know that situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina is the most challenging and complex in the Western Balkans. Bosnia and Herzegovina is multi-ethnic miniature. It's a composition of the three peoples. They're based on the countries. The composition of countries based on the Dayton-Paris Agreement. One country through two ethnicity and three peoples and others. Policies in Bosnia and Herzegovina are trapped right now in between the two extremes of centralism or separatism. Both are destructive and bring into question the very basis for the stability of Bosnia and Herzegovina. The constitutional equality of its three constituent peoples, namely Bosniaks, Serbs, and Croats. For us, for Croatia, because we share common border, external border, more than 1,000 kilometers, it's for paramount importance to have a stable, functional, and prosperous Bosnia and Herzegovina. And thus, therefore, Bosnia and Herzegovina must remain true to its founding principles, expressed on the referendum for independence in 1992, and reflected by the Dayton-Paris Agreement, peace agreement, if it wishes to achieve functionality and preserve stability. Probably, and as I, for example, during our sessions, Foreign Affairs Council and others, nor countries know much of the past and history of Bosnia and Herzegovina. To understand actually Bosnia and Herzegovina, we have to have a comprehensive discussion on how to help Bosnia and Herzegovina. Actually, the concept of constituent peoples and the equal rights of all citizens are compatible. To clarify, for example, Sejdic and Finci ruling ask only for an elimination of discrimination in election process, not abandon power-sharing mechanism established by the Constitution of Bosnia and Herzegovina. There are many political and legal solutions to ensure both principles. What is actually now very, very important, it is no election year, and next year is there will be an election in Bosnia and Herzegovina. What is very important to change actual electoral law, and in order to eliminate all the forms of discrimination and inequality of the three constituent peoples, of course, and others, just to ensure legitimate representation of three constituent peoples. Namely, Bosnia and Herzegovina needs appropriate institutional framework based on these principles of federalism, decentralization, and legitimate representation in order for country to move forward, including to move forward on its, of course, EU path, which we are actually really honestly support. The leaders of Bosnia and Herzegovina actually should be encouraged by us to engage constructively in a democratic dialogue towards a consensus that will push Bosnia and Herzegovina forward. I mentioned that this year is non-election year. And then the third issue, genuine reconciliation. Okay, Western Balkans is still plagued by the legacy of war. Genuine reconciliation, essential for the long-term and sustainable stability of the region, remains the key challenge. Reconciliation must be built on the truth of and grounded in facts. Reconciliation cannot take place without clarifying the destiny of the missing person and rendering justice for all the victims. And what are opportunities, solutions? The EU via must be proactive to give the needed push to its relations with the Western Balkans. More political engagement and more focus on political issues is required, including through the implementation of a strategy of political engagement with the region, as set out in Zagreb Declaration of 6th May last year. Then EU-Western Balkan Summit to be organized by the Slovenian presidency in the upcoming months, in October, and the summit of the Berlin process held in July provide good opportunity to continue where Zagreb summit left off. And finally, in order to have the recovery of the region, it is crucial to accelerate its economic integration and deepen its economic cooperation with the EU. Our American partners have renewed their engagement in the Western Balkans. The EU can do much more, especially if its efforts are matched with efforts of those of the US. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. There would have been many other interesting questions and even more interesting answers, but time has really passed very fast. I will not draw any conclusions, but I would warmly thank Minister Aurescu, Minister Radman, and I will kindly ask you to join me in a round of applause for this excellent start of the morning.
Thank you, and I convey best regards from Zagreb.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
So we'll have a short break until the next panel.